Evolve Mutations 2 from Heavyocity for Native Instruments KONTAKT. All right, let's stop that there. So that is a little bit of Evolve Mutations 2. Now in this video, we're going to go over everything you would find in the manual, but of course this is better than the manual because you'll actually see what everything does. So this will be the only video on Evolve Mutations 2 that you'll actually need to watch, and you'll know everything about it. If you've already seen the Evolve, talking about the Evolve, a definitive guide, then the first portion here is going to be very familiar because this interface is basically the same thing as Evolve. Side note, the original Evolve, when it was first released in around 2009, that interface used to look like the current Evolve Mutations interface. They went back to Evolve and actually updated that interface to look more like the Evolve Mutations 2 interface, and also added trigger effects and various other things, because even though we know Evolve is around 10 years old, it's still a really, really great library. But in this video, we're focusing on Evolve Mutations 2, all of the Evolves, Evolve, Evolve Mutations, and Evolve Mutations 2 are all in the same family of a cinematic percussion, sort of cinematic scoring tools, okay? But they're all different. The sounds in each of them are different. There will be time code for each section of the video, so check the description below if you want to sort of skip around from section to section. So let's go ahead and take an in-depth look at Evolve Mutations 2. So here we are in KONTAKT. Of course, we have KONTAKT loaded up in Pro Tools. You can, of course, run KONTAKT on its own or in any DAW that you want. Get rid of that clip back there. We don't need it. Right here is Evolve Mutations 2. This is what it looks like. We have instruments and multis. We'll have different sections for each of this. But right now, what we want to look at is the interface. Now, the interfaces of our different instruments, our rhythmic suites, percussive kits, so on and so forth, they're actually all the same. So this will be pretty quick. Once you know one, you will know them all. So let's just start here with percussive. We'll load this up. You'll see here, if you remember from Evolve Mutations, or if you happen to have it, we look in here, percussive. Here's Scorefare Menu 1, Scorefare Menu 2, and then here in Evolve Mutations 2, we have the Scorefare Menu 3, 4, and 5. So here is our interface. Let's start down here at the keyboard, actually. Now, in a lot of newer KONTAKT instruments, now keep in mind, Evolve Mutations 2 was first released in 2010. So the newer libraries, whenever we highlight a key or hover over a key, we get a readout down here in the information area of KONTAKT. We don't have that here. Now, all of our loops and sounds are laid out in a specific way. Usually lower sounds will, of course, be further down, and higher sounds will be up top. Right. Up here are our trigger effects. And if you know how the trigger effects work in Evolve, you already know how they work here. All right. But that is your keyboard. Of course, I'm assuming you have it turned on right here. So of course, anything that is white or black, there's nothing mapped to those keys. So we have a bunch of loops here that are, of course, synced to our DAW or to KONTAKT. Right now we're at 90 BPM. If I take this up to 300, which is really outside of the range that you would probably want to use this, much faster. Right. Let's put this on, say 110. Okay, and I mentioned that because these are loops here, audio loops, and we can see that by going behind the wrench here, make sure our mapping editor and wave editor are on. We can actually see those samples on the keyboard here. Let me press a key on my keyboard. That red line right there shows me what key I'm on, what sample I'm on, which is right there. And you can see me play that back right in here. Of course, play it in here too. Right, all the little steps there. So up here in the master effects, we have several different effects. We'll start with a screamer, and the screamer is like a Ibanez tube screamer, that green box that we use for guitar a lot. Turn it on. Let's find a loop here. That works. Pull up the drive. Gets grittier, right? And the bright. Turn that off. Okay, then we have lo-fi. So think of bits like your bit depth. Okay, you turn it on. Play that. Hold down this like 8-bit audio. A little bit grittier, right? Get really far down here. Really breaks up, right? Way down here, it's basically nothing. Right? Now, S rate is your sample rate, just like you use in your DAW. So we'll play something here. Pull down the sample rate. Right, up here is about 48, right? Pull it down to 13K. Right? Combine these, of course. Then we have noise. All right. In all of these controls, everything you see here can be mapped to your keyboard by simply right-clicking and do Learn MIDI CC Automation. So if you want to sort of play this stuff in or perform it in while you're playing your keyboard, you can learn that automation. Now I'll turn a knob on my keyboard. Now these two are grouped right now. I can remove that there. Just have this one. Okay. So then, of course, I could play back and play that in. And we can, of course, do that with all of our controls here. Okay. Obviously, you can also automate things in your host, however you do that. And that will be a standard for whatever DAW you happen to be using. Onto the cabinet, which is just like a guitar cabinet or a speaker cabinet. Turn that on. Right, like it's coming through a speaker cabinet there. We have the size of that cabinet. The air. Sort of simulate the room. And the treble. Turn that off. Okay. You can even right-click this and learn that as well to sort of use it as a performance, although we do have our trigger effects that can do that as well. On to a delay, standard delay. It's on right now. And we have the level of the delay, the feedback. So how much are we feeding back? How long is that tail going to be? And of course, the time division. And those numbers shown in there, 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, so on and so forth. Those number of values shown represent the number of 16th notes the sound is delayed. So 1 is 1/16th, 2 is 1/8, 3 is 3/16th, dotted eighth, so on and so forth. 4 would be a quarter. Pull that up there and hear that. Pull the level up. All right, feedback up. Really going to feedback now. Now I'll release that note. It's going to continue on because we have our feedback so high. Turn it down a bit. Change the time, of course. Turn it off. And a reverb. Level, size of the space, and the damping, which is kind of like, you have foam in your room or a couch or whatever that sort of dampens those high-end frequencies there. It gets a little more transparent as you pull that up. So for example, I'll pull it down here. We'll damp it. Right, damping it some there. Turn it off. All right, and another good thing to know, in case you don't, head behind the wrench here and come down here, and you can actually see. So our screamer, our lo-fi, Here's a high pass. Here's a cabinet here, and down here, our synth effects will be our delay and reverb. The red B means they are bypassed, right? You can, of course, toggle that in here, add other effects in here as well. But what happens, in case you're wondering, if I turn reverb on and turn the screamer on, you can have multiples of these on, by the way. Okay. You just don't see the controls at all times. You have to switch through them here, but you can always head back here and see what's on. So now our screamer's on and our reverb is on, as we can see right here. Okay. So again, if you want to combine these, I could combine all of those. Say there, good enough. Okay, over here to the filters section, we have a high pass. And if you don't know what that means, it will look something like this here. So our high pass would be over here. Low pass is over here. Highs, let the highs pass, meaning they cut out lows. Low pass means the lows pass and it cuts out the highs. That is correct. So it would look something like this here for the high pass, cutting out the lows over here and letting the highs pass. As you can see that there. And opposite, of course, for the low pass. Now we also have a resonant filter over here. And that would be something like this. If I set my cutoff point for, in this case, the high pass, I can resonate around that frequency. And it's sort of like that. It would sort of look like that. Okay, really peaking up around that frequency. All right. So to hear that, of course, turn them on or off. Obviously, right-click and learn that automation. Turn on the high pass. Pull the cutoff up, cutting out those lows. Now let's resonate around this frequency here. All right. Now we can do a sweep. All right. That would be cool to automate, or of course to play in with your keyboard there. Opposite for our low pass here, of course. Just those lows. Resonate it. Okay. A lot of customization you can do in here. So down to our amplitude envelope. This is a standard attack, decay, sustain, and release. And I think you'll probably hear the attack better if I go to something like a percussive kit. We'll just grab maybe this here. Throw that in there. And make sure that's on Omni so I can play it with my keyboard. So if I take the attack up, we're not going to get that initial transient. It's going to sort of fade in, almost like a pad. Right? That's your attack. We'll get rid of that for now. And the decay determines how quickly the sound drops from the sustain level after the initial peak is reached. So pull the decay down and maybe the sustain. And the sustain corresponds to the constant volume that the sound takes after the decay until the note is released. You hear it drop down? Right? Sustain it up here. Sustain it here. Right? It decays rather quick. Takes longer that way, of course, to decay down. Now we're just getting like a click. All right. Now the release right now is all the way down. We pull these both. About there's fine. Now I release that note, pretty much just stops. I pull this up and release the note, continues on a bit, right? If I really pull this up and trigger a hit, release, continues on. Pull the decay up there. Going to continue on now. really taking a while to release there. And release the key, and it continues on instead of just sort of stopping, right? Release is continuing on because the release is really long there. So that is your ADSR, or attack, decay, sustain, and release. And that is everything here on the main page of our interface. All right, so now let's look at our trigger effects. And if you already know how to use trigger effects, you probably don't need to watch this. But flip over here to our trigger effects page, and that corresponds with our mapping down here, our red notes. Of course, play those with your keyboard, your physical keyboard, press them in here. Right, they come on temporarily. As soon as I release the note, they go off. Or of course, program that in your DAW. You can also click these and they will stay on until you trigger them off with a note, or manually flip them off with your mouse. And what trigger effects let you do is a sort of a real-time performance with effects. You can also right-click and learn that CC automation if you want. But let's play something back here. All right, that works. And I'll trigger a trigger effect. That's dirt, a filter, panner there. Of course, I can use these, you know, more than one at a time. It's our delay 2. All right. And by the way, whenever you're playing back your loops here, you're not stuck with just playing, you know, one loop at a time. You can, of course, use multiple keys. So maybe, that's pretty cool, right? Maybe these two together. A little bit congested. Let's do these two. It's kind of cool. Try it with that. Right. That's another layer there. And we'll add another one. There we go. And one more. All right. So layer up your loops, layer up your notes. You don't have to sit there just, you know, holding one key and then the next one, the next one, the next one, right? Layer those things up to get interesting sounds. Sort of make them your own. And of course, remember, change your BPM here. So 60, for example. All right, put this back to, we'll say 120 for now. Okay. All right, so that is the main interface that you will see in all of your Evolve Mutations 2 instruments. All right, so now we'll look at our instruments here. Just take a look at them, what we have. So we have Rhythmic suites here, percussive and tonal. We'll grab something here, so menu 5 there. Hear a little of that. Okay. And our tags here, LPS, so our looped percussions here, and then our mapped loop slices, MLS, so mapped looped slices. You can tell by the tag what everything is. me get rid of this one here. Let's come here and let's go to 4. Hear that? All right, look at that loop if you want. Down here to C0, which is right there. Okay. Now, if we come to our mapped loop slices, and just come back up here so we can see the name. So LPS, score fair, menu 4. Then our mapped loop slices, score fair, menu 4. Click into here. So now these are tagged with each key, which corresponds to the loops we have mapped to certain keys in our menu. So if I grab this one here, which is C0, and put this on Omni and solo that. Now that's our sliced loop. Okay, so we can trigger it here, the full loop, or remix it here with each slice, as you can see in here. Okay, so that's what those names correspond to. Let's come up here and play this note, for example. That should be C2. So come here to C2, throw this in here. Let's head into the menu, come down to C2, see that here. All right. Then we'll head to our mapped looped sample, put that on solo and Omni, press this key here. Same thing. And then look in here. And now we can see all of those samples have been mapped. Right here is the full loop right there. But here is all of those different hits, all mapped to different keys. And that means you can replay this loop however you want. All right. Back here. So you can replay all of those loops however you want, and that's how those names work. It corresponds to the key on whatever menu you happen to be in. But now we'll look at the tonal here, just as an idea. Hear that? Interface is the same. Remember your BPM and all of your filters there, but that's all the same there. And then we have our single loops, and that's sort of the same thing as our mapped looped samples, sort of here. Pull this up here. Going up the scale there, as you can see. Down here. You can see how that is stretching the entire length. If you know anything about Kontakt, we've stretched that across the full keyboard, that one sample. All right. And as you can see, tracking is on. If it wasn't on, no matter where I click, it's just going to play whatever the sample actually is. All right. So tracking, of course, makes that track our different notes. Just as an aside for those who wonder how that works. Then, quick look at our percussive kits. I'll just grab something here. And the percussive kits are a collection of 11 different menu style kits. It's comprised of a wide variety of drum type hits and impacts, similar to the Rhythmic suites. Most of the percussive kits incorporate, of course, the trigger effects keys. Hits there. Okay. And because again, this is an older library, it came out around 2010 or so, our key splits look a little different. So anytime you notice an empty note, that usually means the sound is going to be different between these continuous notes here. So up here would be something a bit different than down here. Right. Of course, we have our trigger effects up there as well. So that's a quick look at the percussion. Again, we're going to have a demo section. All this stuff is the same thing, effects and whatnot. So look at all of these key splits here. So our sting hits right there. Great sample. Of course, you can use your trigger effects with that. Maybe a cabinet on that. Really modify things however you want. All right, so that's your stings and transition interface there. Same thing. Tonality and effects, we have melodic and inst, so instrument, GTR is guitar. This is other, this is piano, this is synth. Just like our Evolve Mutations, if you have seen that video. Again, interface is the same thing. No trigger effects here in this case though. Now this one here is MW, so mod wheel. So if I adjust that mod wheel up, and modify that sound. Okay. And one quick look at the pads and effects. Here we have AFX, so ambient effects. APA, ambient, sort of like pad, atonal, ambient pad, tonal here for the APT. We see that here. Right. Versus something like atonal. All right, so that's all of your different interfaces. There are rhythmic suites, percussive kits, stings, and transitions, and of course our tonality and effects. All right, so now we'll look at the multis real quick. And here we have combos and inst stacks, so instrument stacks, all right? The combos here are multi-timbral construction palettes, and the stack instruments are, of course, stacked instruments, all right? Quick look at that. Of course, we're going to have a demo later on. So right now, all of these are mapped from the MIDI input of A1, then A2, A3, and 4 down here as well. We can, of course, set these up however we want, right? On Omni, and play them all together. Okay, that's your combo. And then an instrument stack would just double click and replace it. Would look something like that. Now in this case, this is A1, 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 and A1. So one key or one MIDI track will trigger everything at once here. All right, so that is a quick look at the multis, the combo, and the instrument stack. So of course, Evolve 2 contains several different multis for us to use right out of the box, but we can of course create our own multis just by finding something. Let's just start somewhere. Say we like that. Then we can build this up with some, actually let me come in here and go to tonal. I'll just grab something here, sort of at random, and listen to that. All right, I like it. Those two together. All right, so then you could continue on finding things that you want to include in your own multi. This on Omni for now, solo that. Very cool. And of course, you can have multiple stings, multiple percussion. You could even have things from Evolve Mutations or the original Evolve or anything that you want, really. But let's grab one of these too. Maybe melodic and maybe something like this in there. Put that on solo and just hear that. All right, so if we like that, let's hear this all together. I'm just holding down one key, triggering all of those. We'll get the routing next. All right, so if you like that multi that you created, make sure you set your routing properly and come up here and save your multi as and call it whatever you want. So save that. And then over here in our multis, right there is the multi we just created. So you can, of course, load up whatever you want. So here's a different multi. Load up our epic multi that we just created there really quickly by layering all of this stuff together. Right back to it. Just holding down one note. Of course, I could hold down several notes, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want. All right. So that is how you can create your own multis here in Evolve Mutations 2. Next up, let's look at MIDI routing here. So whenever you have a lot of different instruments here, like a multi, we'll just load this combo up. And this one here defaults to input 1, MIDI input 1, down here MIDI input 2. This is 3, S4, S5, all the way down to 8. So I press a key on my keyboard because of course I have this track here in Pro Tools activated, and that's going out to channel 1. So I'm just triggering this one instrument here. If I want to trigger both of these at the same time, I can put them on Omni, for example. Now one note or one MIDI track will be triggering both of those. I could also use the same port. Just one. So one here, one there, so on and so forth, okay? But of course, the problem is, whenever you set up your multis, you don't always want everything to play with the same note at the same time, because it might not sound good. It might sound good, it might not, but you might want to do other things and play other notes that trigger, different things at different times. So this seems to work okay. And if all you wanted was that, all you would need is one MIDI track or one instrument track here in Pro Tools. But if you want to record things, different MIDI for different instruments, you can set that up in here, put this on 2, or MIDI input 2, put this on MIDI input 3, and we'll come back down here, put this on 4, put this on 5. Okay, and those should be, let's put this on 6 too. 6 and then 7 and 8 are already there. So in this case, we already know that this track here is triggering our MIDI input 1. And just that track, I can change that in Pro Tools. This will be different for whatever DAW you have. If I switch that to 2, it's going to trigger just that instrument. If I put this on 5, come down here to 5, which is right here, click it so I see what notes we have. Just triggers that. Okay. Put this back on 1. But you could also, of course, set up more MIDI tracks. So we already have some MIDI tracks in here. If I wanted this track here to trigger instrument 2 here with the input 2, just select that. It's already set up correctly. This one's already set up correctly as well to 3. This one here set up correctly to 4. That's enough for what we need here. So I'm going to arm that track now. I'm just triggering 2. Arm this track. Just triggering 3. Okay. Then you can record in your parts separately instead of trying to record all of these on the same MIDI note. All right. So really quick, if I came in here to our DAW and I wanted to trigger something in, this is again going to channel 1. That's cool. So trigger G1 here, then come down to this MIDI track. Obviously you could play all of this in. It's kind of cool. So here we're triggering C1, and in here, that's kind of cool. E flat 2, so on and so forth, right? So then I can't guarantee this is going to sound good, but just so you can see that there. If I play that back, we're going to get those separate notes to our separate instruments here, of course. All right. Doesn't sound good, but that's not the point we're trying to prove here, is it? All right. So that is setting up multiple MIDI tracks to trigger each of your instruments separately here with Evolve Mutations 2. And this applies not only to Evolve Mutations 2, but absolutely anything you have here in Kontakt. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about audio routing. So we can, of course, right now, let's come back here to Evolve Mutations 2. Grab that, throw it in here. And I still have those MIDI tracks set up. Let me just hear it. Okay. Just as an example, so all of these are going out of stereo 1, as you can see there. Now, if we come up here to our outputs right here, now I could, of course, use one of my presets that I set up previously, or I can create those outputs right here. And quantity of tracks is, of course, the number of tracks. Number of channels means number of channels per track. So 2 channels is stereo. 1 is mono. Then, of course, you can actually go greater than that as well. Go up to 5. If I make that, right there is our sort of surround channel right there. Don't want it, I can get rid of it. You can also, of course, name your channels whatever you want. So I'll come in here and name it drums or whatever. And once you restart Pro Tools, that will actually show up, the name drums would show up in here, okay? Now, the way I like to do this is actually just to have sort of a standard stereo output with my names, ST2, ST3, so on and so forth. But another thing you can do if you don't want to set up your outputs manually, we come here and just put this to the default. So that's what it looks like by default. You can come up here to your output for each of your instruments, use your down arrow, and create a separate master output channel. Select that, and it will create a new channel with this instrument already routed to it, and it will have the name. Okay, so I can do that here if I want, and I can do that here. Okay, so on and so forth. We'll do one more. Just create those. Now we'll have to set up this routing here because they're all going out 1, 2. And I want the output to, of course, it'll be different here. If I monitor that, not coming in that track, of course. So right now, what I'll do before we close this is make sure I save this as current for all formats. Just because of the way Pro Tools works, it has to have all of those outputs exposed whenever we start up Pro Tools. So I'll close this down and start it back up. And we're back here in Pro Tools. Now use this drop down. Let's see if it changed my names for me, and it did. So now here on our audio tracks, which in Pro Tools, Control-Shift-N, audio tracks, stereo in this case, I already have those created right here. So on my audio track, use my drop down, me to plug in Kontakt and select that. Sometimes our names are a little bit weird here in Pro Tools. Sometimes it doesn't like to actually update those names there properly. There we go. Now, if I input monitor that track and come over here, not getting anything yet, come in here to our routing, make sure this is routed properly to the correct outputs here. So that's easy enough. And over here, be there and there. I actually missed one there, but here would be there and there. Let me go back here, make sure I grab that one. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we have that coming out of this track instead of the stereo master track and coming into this track here. Okay. You can of course use separate MIDI tracks for this or one MIDI track for this and still have all of your audio on different audio tracks. If you prefer to turn it into audio and not just use it as a straight up MIDI instrument with all of that audio routed through an aux or through your instrument track. So let me come down here, solve that. We have the output here in Kontakt, but nothing in Pro Tools because we need to set this up here. Let me switch this around to the proper track now. There we go. Now, if I play back, you see I'm getting all of that audio on these tracks here. If I didn't have them input monitored or recording, I play back, not going to hear anything because nothing is coming out of our stereo one there. Now if I play back, we'll hear this. All right. So that means now I can record and enable all of these tracks there, then record the MIDI we already have here, or of course, play in more MIDI. Of course, that's just triggering one. Hold down Shift and do multiples if I wanted to. But for now, we'll use the MIDI we already have on our tracks here, just as an example. And those are record enabled. I'll just hit record. It's going to record that audio to separate tracks. Okay. So then, of course, you can come in here and just that, just that, just that, just that, and use whatever plugins you want on this or affect it however you want, just like audio, because now it is audio. And let's grab our percussive onslaught again, just to show this here. And as I mentioned, we don't have to have multiple MIDI inputs to record to different outputs. Let's just put all of these on Omni. All right, so that's pretty cool. So all of that is just one note, and that's enough. We didn't change all of them, but we did enough there. So now, if I want to trigger everything with just one MIDI note, as we saw previously, I can still put that output to separate audio tracks. I can, of course, create those separate tracks here if I wanted to. Come down here to outputs. What I'm going to do first, actually, is go to stereo out, okay, and then save that as the current. Otherwise, it's not going to show up. whenever you restart Pro Tools. And also, before I do this, just because of what Pro Tools likes to do to us with our names, I'm going to change these to something else. All right, I'll restart. We'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. Our outputs are correct. I already have them routed correctly, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth. Now we head in here, plug in interface, and that's 2. Just set this up real quick. Of course, you could do more than the few tracks that we're doing. But we'll do this here real quick. Just set this up to the correct input for the audio. There we go. So record enable that track, or monitor that track, I should say. Make sure that's record enabled up here. Remember that we set these to Omni, okay? So that Omni is the input of our MIDI keyboard here. So I have this going in on just channel 1, and channel 1, because these are on Omni, will all trigger with just one key or one MIDI track. Okay. So now let's go ahead and make sure this is routed out to 2. And this is going to be routed out to 3. This here will be routed out to 4. And this here to 5. And that's all the tracks we have set up. Monitor those. All right. Just one note, and I'm getting all of those sounds split out into audio to different tracks. So to show that, we'll record, enable all of those tracks. Make sure I get rid of this MIDI, because again, these things are on Omni, so any channel that's sending information is going to trigger it. All right. So that is clean now. Good. And I'll just select those. Let's pull this up here. There we go. And we'll just record and use our keyboard. Okay. So of course we could have done that recording process after we recorded the MIDI, right? Record your MIDI in first, make sure your performance is good, and then go ahead and record the tracks. But because we have recorded, now we have separate audio tracks for each of our instruments here. So we'll adjust that, which is of course this top instrument right there. Nothing is coming out of Kontakt right now because this is on solo right now. So solo just that. Right. And of course, then affect this with any plugins that you want. Or do a cool reverse on it with your audio suite or whatever you happen to want to do. All right. So that is splitting out your audio with Evolve Mutations 2, splitting it out into different outputs here in Kontakt, then recording that to audio in your DAW if you so wish. You, of course, don't have to do that. You can just keep it as a MIDI information that plays through an aux track or your instrument track. All right, so now you should know everything about Evolve Mutations 2, how it works, how to split things out to audio tracks, different MIDI tracks, of course, all of the effects and whatnot. So now we're going to move on with the demo of our instruments first, and after that we'll demo some of the multis, okay? So we'll start here, and we'll just listen to some of this stuff. Again, don't forget, we can layer things within the instrument. So by that, I mean pressing more than one key at a time. That's 2 keys. Maybe add that too. Okay. A lot of good samples in here. for game audio, movies, television, cinematic stuff. You know, you've heard these samples on countless movies and TV shows and movie trailers. The Evolve series is pretty legendary, actually. Even though all of these libraries are coming up on 10 years old. So that's our Scorefair menu 3, and we already know what that menu means. So a menu of different hits and loops and things like that. And of course our mapped looped slices, which I'm not going to look at. Let's check this one out here. All right, that's pretty cool. Layer some together here. That's cool. Of course, don't forget we can always change the tempo in our DAW. You're going to be finding sounds here in Evolve Mutations 2, Evolve, and Evolve Mutations 1. You'll be finding new sounds for years to come. And a lot of times you'll hear something, right? Say, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe change up the tempo, use your effects in here, whatnot. So that sounds cool. I want to add something to it, right? Just start building up your multi like we did previously. That works well. Yeah. Really well. But we'll come back in here. Just to get an idea of some of the stuff that is included. It's a nice one. That was holding down 3 notes in that case. We're not going to look at the mapped loop slices. We already know what those are. Check out the tonal. That's 2 notes. Three notes. Really customize that. That's cool. All right, that was 3 notes, and instantly I want to come back here to percussive, throw this in here. Right, you can get lost in this instrument for hours. But let's go ahead and demo some more of the tonals here. Of course, look at our key split down here. So a blank key here, a blank key here. So sort of different content between these. Up here. Right, different. All right. Let's do another one here. That's cool. Of course, remember your trigger effects, and of course, change your tempo around however you want. Demo some of our percussion kits. Have a pretty small range on this one. Of course, always look at your samples if you want. There's actually different samples. On here, there's a split right there. All right. And program in your own groove with these kits. Grab another one. You'll hear stuff like that all the time, of course, in movies, horror films, trailers, you know. Coming in September, right? Do one more. This has a mod wheel, as you can see, MW there. And of course, stack that with other instruments for some cool ambience. Demo of our stings and transitions here. So hold it for it to continue on. Of course, we know about all of our effects, right? Put that release way down. Cuts off, right? So make use of your ADSR whenever you need it. Sometimes you don't want those loops cutting right off. You want them to sort of fade a little bit. In that case, you can pull your release up some, okay? That's cool. was pretty cool. Don't forget your trigger effects and the like. And remember your key splits down here, you can see. So different content here, or here, or here. And this would sound really good with some percussion going on at the same time, wouldn't it? Throw that one in here. Of course, keep building things up to get just what you want. We'll do one more of this. I bet if I put this in here too. Of course, pan things around. Control click or command click on Mac to center that out. Tonality and effects. Pull that mod wheel up. And these two would actually sound really good together. Again, that would sound great with some more ambience in there. Some percussion going on. This is instrument other. Screamer on that. It's a piano. Do one more here. Awesome. Okay, let's just clear all that back here. And one more here. Pull that mod wheel down. All right. On to pads and effects. Ambient effects, AFX. Of course, different things down here. And up here. Ambient pad atonal with the mod wheel. Again, instantly I'm thinking about percussion with that. Sound really good. But we'll move on. Ambient pad tonals now. That one here. Awesome. And we'll do one more. Pretty cool. And last one here. Okay, so that is a demo of all of our different kinds of instruments here in Evolve Mutations 2. Let's come in here now and demo some of these multis that are already set up for us. Of course, as you should know by now, we can change the tempo. So 300, right? 80. Or we'll go say 110. All right. And you should also know that these here are combos. This is set up right here as different MIDI tracks. We've already covered our different MIDI tracks. All right, not bad. Holding down 2 notes. Of course, your trigger effects and all of that stuff. Double click. Put a new multi in there. That's just MIDI channel 1. That's 2. Or MIDI channel 1 going into instrument 2 there, I mean. Now this here, just click it so I can see where my keys are on this actually. There we go. Just checking the levels as we go along here. Make sure nothing's too loud. Now this one would of course work better with separate MIDI channels and playing different notes, of course, but we'll go ahead and set this up as such. Works pretty well. Just our levels, of course. Yeah, that works. It's real quick, real easy to get something usable here. That's multiple notes. Works together pretty well. Just holding down one note, and of course, make use of your effects, your filters, and all that stuff. You can even throw in more instruments into these preset multis if you want. But let's check out some more here. right. Just one key, man. And if you think that would sound better faster, do it. Works well. Here's something like that in video games all the time, right? Pretty cool. Let's go to 120. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. I'm not going to cover everything here. I'll just double click that one, actually. Replace what we have in there. So again, let's route these real quick. I could, of course, leave these on their individual channels and just set up different MIDI tracks in here and arm all of those. But let's just do it like this. Of course, we could use our trigger effects and other stuff with that. I want that to go off quick. Again, pull that release down. Goes right off. Yeah, that works well. This is a nice one. We've already heard it, but let's hear it again. Percussive onslaught. Once again, route the MIDI. And here, in case you didn't notice, we have two rhythmic suites. So don't think you just have to use one. So this is menu 3 and menu 4. Playing that loop and that loop in this case. This works well together. But would be more usable, or you'd have more options to combine your loops and hits if you had different MIDI channels, right? But it works. Might trigger effects here. Of course, don't be afraid to add in your own instruments here from either Evolve or Mutations here, or anything at all. And then, of course, save that multi if you like it. One more combo here. It's a pretty cool one. All right, there's the multi we made earlier. Let's move on to the instrument stack multi here. Bunch of kits here. Of course, we have our trigger effects if you want to use those. Next one here. Look at our samples. Already mapped to the #1 MIDI channel. You can also load multiple multis at the same time if you wanted to. Just double click it and choose no, and that will merge all of those together, in case you didn't know that. What's up here? You know, you've heard that sound in countless trailers. All right. Try this one here. Grab our epic multi that we made earlier and pop that in there too. Those are already set to Omni. Right? We really pumped that up quick. Like, that's good enough right there. For a nice underscore to some scene or something, right? Just holding down one note. Of course, don't be afraid to hold down multiple notes. You know, don't be afraid to layer up your loops and your notes there. because that's how you really customize things, not only layering your instruments, but of course holding down multiple, notes at the same time. That's cool. Like that. What about, there we go. Yeah, that works. Of course, combine your trigger effects, all your other effects with that too, for anything that has trigger effects, of course. And pump it up, make it your own, adjust your tempo, all that stuff that we already covered here for Evolve Mutations 2. That is the definitive guide for Evolve Mutations 2.